Hey guys, Jeremy here with KISS Aquatic Systems. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. In today's video, we're going to go through the complete fall closing and winterization process for my 5,000-gallon koi pond here. It's a fairly straightforward process, but it still took a few hours, mostly because we wanted to really make sure that the net stays suspended above the water surface, which isn't that easy given the footprint here. So this pond is 25 feet long and 10 to 15 feet wide. But we did get there in the end with a bit of creativity and wizardry, which you will see shortly. Also, as part of the process, it's actually very important to get into the pond itself and terrorize your koi. You do need to show them who's boss from time to time. Okay, so let's get started. First, we are clearing out the leaves that have fallen on the outside walls of the pond. This is because once the net is up, any leaves trapped on the walls will probably stay there for the whole season, which is not great for the moss that we are growing out here between the rocks. Moss grows really well in the colder months, actually, as long as it's not covered with leaves. Okay, so after that, I'm gonna quickly get into this pond and clean out all the leaves and the twigs, the acorns and such that have settled at the bottom. Yeah, trees drop a lot of stuff over time. So I'm standing on the shallow plant shelf mostly. It's fairly easy from there for me to access the small area at the bottom center of this pond, where the slope causes all of that plant debris to settle. So I don't have to sweep the whole pond with the net, just a fairly small, I don't know, call it 5 by 5 foot area where I can see everything has accumulated. So yeah, that's pretty easy. So when you are designing your pond and shaping it, I would definitely recommend going bare bottom and sloping the bottom and sides so that stuff tends to settle in one place. Really does make life a lot easier. Now, as you may be able to notice, as I'm doing this, the water itself is staying really clear. That's because there really isn't any fish poop or gunk or muck at all at the bottom of this pond. All that stuff gets sucked into the plumbing and ends up either in my settlement chamber or the bottom of my upper pond, which I purge or siphon out periodically just as part of routine maintenance. Call it once every month or two. So I don't have to worry about any of that now. The fall cleanout really just is about quick touch-ups, and just the basic routine pond maintenance takes care of the rest. Which is as it should be, by the way. A proper koi pond is designed to be able to efficiently access and remove waste as it's produced. So nothing should really be accumulating in your pond over time. Really any time of year. Okay, so now that we're done with the cleaning process, it's time for the most important part. Getting into the main body of the pond and seeing how close I can get to the koi before they start freaking out. Pretty close, actually. Okay, now let's take a moment and talk a bit about winterizing pond plants. For this pond, I don't do anything to winterize. I don't have that many plants here, as you can see, so I just leave them where they are and let them die back naturally. A lot of folks like to trim back their pond plants before the first frost. so that they don't die back into the pond and negatively impact water quality, which is totally fine. But I'm really not worried about the water quality impact of this relatively modest plant load in 5,000 gallons of water. And all these plants are, I should say, they are perennials and they do come back. So I just leave them alone and let them do their thing. So let's see, I've got a hardy water lily here where the leaves, they stay green through January. I've got a bunch of spatterdock, which drops some of their leaves around now, but tend to keep a few going all season long, actually. And water irises, which stay green all year round below the waterline, but start browning above the waterline in January. Now, all these plants do start coming back up in the spring very early in the season. Actually, even before spring starts, these guys start coming back up late February. I mean, maybe that has something to do with me not messing with them, or maybe it's just something else. I can't say for sure. Okay, so now that the fun part is over, it's time to net this thing, which is the super fun part. Basically here, you can see us struggle and stumble around with this 50-foot, 4-year-old beat up net and try to get it over the pond. I'm pretty sure I said I was going to replace this net this season and buy a new one, but I'm cheap and I'm also a hoarder, so clearly that did not happen. As I believe I said earlier, the hard part here is getting the net to hang above the water, which is the best way to set it up. Not really the end of the world if it touches the water in some places. And this net is probably going to start sagging over time as the fall progresses. But above the pond is better because that makes it less likely for leaves to accumulate on the net rather than just landing there and bouncing off and getting blown off by the breeze, which is better. Once the net starts to settle on the pond surface and the leaves on top start getting wet, then they can't blow off and you have to remove them manually from time to time, which is extra work that nobody wants to have to do. So yeah, a little extra elbow grease up front saves a bunch of hassle down the line. Trust me, getting out there in freezing weather every few weeks with a net, scooping off wet leaves from the top of the pond is not as much fun as it sounds. So we're using a bunch of different stuff to prop up this net here. Zip tying to trees, suspending over the rock work in the back of the pond, also setting up some temporary structures with cinder blocks and massive garden stakes. I'm a big fan of dry stacking cinder blocks actually. They are cheap, they are sturdy, and they last forever. As long as the bottom block is stable and not leaning in a crazy direction, you should be able to easily dry stack 3 or 4 standard 16 by 8 by 8 cinder blocks and not have to ever worry about them falling over. The aluminum pans on top are to protect the netting from the sharp edges of the blocks. They also add a nice sparkle, I think, to this highly artistic and aesthetically pleasing structure here. I'm sure you agree. I do know some folks use PVC and build some sort of a frame for the net to rest on. I think that's a great idea for smaller ponds. But for a bigger pond like this, it just costs too much money. I mean, there's way cheaper ways out there to hold up a net. Okay, yeah, guys, that's it. The camera battery here died out on us while we were working, so didn't quite catch the last part of the work. But this is the end result. Pond is completely covered. The net is suspended. Looks like it's at least a foot above the water surface everywhere. And the fish are pretty chilled out about it all, which is nice. This is their fourth fall here, so they know the drill. Except for the two smaller ones that are kind of getting on my nerves. They are new and they are temporary residents, despite what they seem to think. So going forward, it's still early October here. I'm probably going to keep feeding these fish through the end of this month. After which point the true cold winter weather will set in. At that point, call it early November, I'll shut down the main waterfall, do a thorough filter cleaning, and reduce the flow rate here through the winter by more than 50%. So that will allow the pond water to thermally stratify, and the fish can hang out at the bottom where it's warmest. So once winter sets in and I stop feeding, I also drop off with the water changes dramatically. So now I'm still doing it weekly, but starting November, I shift towards monthly water changes, or even less if it's very cold. Last winter was one of the coldest we've ever had, and I actually didn't do any water changes at all in January or February. But that's not really the norm for me. So that's the plan for the rest of the fall and winter. It's also how I've run things in this pond for the past 3 years here, with no problems at all. So we're going to stick with that routine. So thanks, guys. That's all for now. It's obviously a bit sad that pond season is coming to a close here. But on the flip side, I think that if I did have to keep feeding these fish all year round, the food bill would probably bankrupt me. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Anyways, thanks again, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and happy ponding.